Are you someone who shows up powerfully in your online meetings, or do you sit quietly, barely seen? Or maybe you find yourself somewhere in the middle with a desire to improve the skill set. In today's world, we are completely online, so now it's more important than ever to stand out from everyone else, to have presence. As an entrepreneur in e-commerce, supporting a global team and having managed hundreds of meetings and presentations online, Steph Wise is here to share with us some insight on how to show up powerfully and manage successful meetings online. Please help us welcome Steph Wise with her speech titled Online Presence. Stephanie.
Have you ever been invited to an online meeting or webinar where you thought it was going to be something else? Or maybe the presenter talked in the same monotone tone and it seemed like it was going to drag on forever. Or what about when you get interrupted every 5 seconds when you're trying to say something because someone keeps talking over you and people keep coming in and out of the meeting, unmuted, perhaps with obnoxious background noises and all? Well, fellow Toastmasters and guests, this is exactly the opposite of what I aim to achieve with my online meetings. And since we're all online now, this is a very relevant topic for everyone. It's an important skill to learn to show up powerfully in this new world we find ourselves navigating today. What's great about online meetings is that they're easy to set up. Technology is, for the most part, user-friendly, or if need be, there's always our friend YouTube that can help us along with simple processes. And just like anything in life, you get good at it with practice. What I love about online meetings is that they're versatile, whether your objective is to add value, to sell something, to teach, or bring people together to work on a project. You can define whatever parameters you need to deliver your message to your audience in an effective way. I want to share 2 key elements of managing successful meetings online that I've learned in my experience in hopes that it will give you an edge to develop your presence online. The first one is preparation. There's nothing worse than scrambling around last minute when you have an online meeting and it's about to start and your computer is just booting up and you're supposed to be the facilitator. Listen, guys, I've been there. Not proud of it, and I've learned that lesson the hard way. Make sure you give yourself ample time to set up, your computer's in working order, and you're online a few minutes early to check in and welcome your guests. You've done a mic check, camera check, hair looks okay, and you have any files or programs that you need open on your computer so that they're ready to go. Depending on what your objectives are, you'll need to determine the platform and format of your meeting. For a team meeting, as an example, you might have an open forum on Zoom where you have all parties interacting with each other or taking turns speaking like we do here at Toastmasters. If that's the case, defining the parameters of the meeting is really important to make sure that everyone knows what protocol to follow. Turn off your phones, mute yourself unless you're speaking, following an agenda, those kinds of things. Or if you have a larger group and the format only involves a few speakers, you might be inclined to set it up so that everyone is muted or that only a few people are able to have those controls. Or maybe even you have someone else online to support you on the back end for logistics. Most of the weekly webinars I do are set up so that everyone is muted and I'm the main presenter. For anyone I'm including in the presentation, I make them a panelist at the appropriate time. I can't imagine how I would manage it otherwise. It's challenging enough for me to manage a slide deck and focus on what I'm saying and even pay attention to the chat roll at the same time. I can't imagine having to mute people as they're popping in and out. So that certainly helps. Preparation can make all the difference in how professional you come across to your audience and the lasting impression you have. Give yourself time to consider the resources you need in advance and how you want to set up your meeting. And most importantly, be organized and ready to go in advance of the start time. Engagement is the second key component of presence and presence online. If you want to be memorable online, it's so important to not only manage your audience, but your own state first and foremost. Enthusiasm is contagious and it draws people in and keeps them there. Now, if you're not someone who is normally high energy, that's okay. but make a concerted effort to raise your vibration. So what do I mean by that? Do something that makes you happy before your meeting, whatever that is for you. It might sound silly, but dancing around your house or jumping up and down to get the energy flowing makes a huge difference in your physiological state. I learned this from attending Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within event, and I do it especially if I'm not feeling like it. Sit tall, smile, try to have fun. Who cares if you mess up? Most people won't notice unless you bring attention to it. And besides, we all make mistakes. Throughout your meeting, it's important to keep people engaged. And one of the challenging things with online, especially, is we don't have humans in front of us to know if they're leaning in or falling asleep. I start my webinars with my personal story, so my audience gets to know me first before I dig into any content. In absence of someone introducing me like Stacy did before my speech, telling my story creates connection and allows my audience to feel like they know me a little bit. What about engagement during the presentation itself? Any tactics come to mind for you? One thing I do during my webinars is I ask questions as though I'm speaking to a live audience. I invite them to type in the chat at certain times, even though I don't read it till the end. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because people are shy even typing in the chat sometimes, which is strange to me. The purpose is to keep the audience stimulated, switch things up a little. In the webinars that I do, there are spaces in my presentation as well where I stop and I have customers and partners come on to share their stories so that the audience and the people listening to me for the first time hear other voices as well. Acknowledge your audience. If you're inviting them to participate in the chat, check to make sure you've answered all their questions. And most importantly, thank them for their time. Time is the most valuable resource that we have. And they chose to spend theirs with you for your online meeting. Showing gratitude for that contributes to their lasting impression. Leave them with a smile. So I hope now you can see that the time you invest into preparation and engagement has a direct influence on your presence as a presenter. I just want to say thank you to Ruth, Stacy, and Brenda who attended my online webinar this week to see for themselves how I make the magic happen. And I hope I've left all of you with a couple things that you can do in your next online meeting to make a virtual memento on your audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Great speech. And yes, you did a great webinar, and I'm going to give you the feedback for that as well. I'm just going to say